Hello, welcome along to a new series and something different on the Ugly Insides YouTube channel and the beginning of a new series over here. Now, we've been in touch with some really good fellas on Twitter and we've collaborated now with the SaintsFC Podcast. It's run by two great gents, John and Tom, and they've been producing an excellent podcast since the beginning of this year, including capturing some excellent and candid exclusive interviews from ex-Saints, including Brett Ormerod, David Armstrong, cult hero Ken Moncal. But this week we're handing you over as the guys review a disappointing result against Watford and preview this weekend's trip to South London and Crystal Palace. Now, John and Tom, they want to try and get to the bottom of why Saints can no longer score. Ask if it's the team, the players, the system, the manager, or even the music played at the start of each match that could be the problem. The fellas look forward to the trip to South London against Crystal Palace after they've sacked Frank de Boer and wonder if Palace could be feeling the new manager bounce. But I'm sure Saints being Saints could mess it up along the way. And John and Tom will get into it a bit more. But before I hand you over, please do leave the SaintsFC Podcast a review on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcast. Do let us know in the comments of this YouTube video as well if you have enjoyed this episode and if you've worked out what the Saints problem is. All the links to their shows are in the description. So without further ado, over to John and Tom.
To Stokes, who's onside. 1-0. Here's Sims. It's a good search this from Southampton. They could finish the job here. It's Shane Long, and he has done it. Just a minute to play, plus stoppage time. Here's Letizia. Oh, better to say farewell than one of the finest players ever to wear the red and white.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the SaintsFC Podcast. My name is John Bailey and sat alongside me I have the ever-present.
I'm Tom Parker. Nice to see you again, John.
Yeah, nice to see you, Tom. As always, if you want to get in touch with the podcast, you can find us on Twitter at SaintsFC Podcast. You can email us, saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com. But the absolute best way to get in contact with us is by going onto the iTunes podcast store and giving us a review, preferably a 5-star one with lots of, useful and glowing feedback and terms of endearment all thrown in.
SEO friendly endearment is the best type of endearment.
Yeah, there we go. So Tom, despite the fact that we've started with some kind of cheery salutations to each other. This is not a particularly great time to be a Saints fan, is it? I'm just going to cut to the chase. What has gone wrong with Southampton Football Club?
Oh, I think this is a, you could probably go. This is our 12th episode of the podcast. That you could probably go back to the third or fourth, and we could have the same conversation. They seem to have lost all confidence. They're devoid of inspiration. They seem to lack leadership, and they seem to have a real lack of cutting edge, and it's terrible to watch, and it's horrible for the fans. I mean, you were there on Saturday, John. What was it like?
It's grim. It's grim at St Mary's at the moment. The Wolves one was the worst. I think maybe even Stoke City at home on the end of last season felt really, really terrible. But every time I go down to St Mary's at the moment, we play really badly. We have no attacking presence, or I just don't. Everything seems to be going wrong. As soon as we have possession of the ball, we seem to be totally devoid of ideas. We're not creating chances. I think if you go back to the start of the season, the game against Swansea, okay, it was 0-0, but we had something like 28 shots on goal.
Yeah, we peppered the goal.
Yeah, but now we've just stopped doing that. We're not even creating chances at all.
It's strange because we have a striker which he is not. In Gary Dean, he's not a great powerhouse. He's not like a Didier Drogba. He's not a Chicharito, and that he feeds off the scraps. His game appears to be based upon very clever runs behind players, but we seem to be completely beyond the West Ham goal, completely beyond of a tactic, of getting that ball to him in that way where he can do the most damage. And he looks incredibly frustrated. The players look very frustrated. And I think, I wasn't at the game on Saturday. I came back from the world's other great football city of Barcelona, and I was very excited about the same thing. It was really weird. I was more excited about it as almost if I was going. Yeah. Because I genuinely thought we were going to do something. And listening to it on the Saints radio, it just became clear we were very devoid of ideas and verve and inspiration. And I wonder, I wonder if there was an issue there with the formation. Are we right to play 2 defensive holding midfield players against a team like Watford at home? I don't know.
It's I think if we're going to blame the formation, the worst defence was when we played Wolves in the League Cup, and we tried a new formation. We tried basically a 5-3-2 formation, and it really, really didn't work. By the time we changed to a 4-4-2 formation, we looked a bit better, but it was too late to properly affect the game. Against Watford, I don't know if you can blame the formation or the setup or the tactics. It was almost like everything that could go wrong, not in a slapstick way, but everything that the whole thing felt wrong. So it didn't feel like the players were giving enough. We were slow. We weren't getting to the second balls. Lots of the players didn't look like they were giving the amount of commitment that they should be doing. Tactically, they didn't seem to be aware of each other or how to get the ball forward. I remember a few occasions where, we'd break forward and suddenly, we'd have the possession on the edge of the box and we'd be looking around, and then before you know it, it'd be right back to Jack Stevens or Wesley Hoot again. And, we're suddenly trying to play it, from the back. And I think as well, we seem to have lost the ability for the kind of quick, close passing. You know how a lot of attacks...
The sort of the football that sort of characterised the Pochettino and maybe the Koeman, to a lesser extent, but those eras.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the stuff that takes an opposition player out of the game. You either take it round him quickly or you pass it round him quickly, and suddenly then you have space. And we just seem to be totally lacking that. And it's frustrating. It's awful to watch. There's one thing about watching your team not get results, but at least seeing it create chances, or feeling unlucky, or feeling robbed by the referee, or all these things. But at the moment, I mean, if you look at our fixtures that we've had at the start of the season, Swansea at home, we've had West Ham United at home, we've had Watford at home, we've had Huddersfield away, and we've had Wolves in the League Cup, and to have only scored in one of those 5 matches is seriously, seriously worrying.
Yeah, it appears they've not learnt any of the lessons from the sort of darkest moments of the... Because I think there's probably a real temptation to rewrite the Puel era as a totally negativity and darkness. I don't think that's the case, and we were there at the great day at Wembley, which showed that. But they don't seem to have learnt any of the lessons, and players look devoid of confidence. We spoke about this briefly earlier, and I wonder if there was a message sent on Saturday, which a lot of fans have been clamouring for Buffal. And, got to get Buffal in the team, got to do this, got to try James Ward-Prowse so you can thread those accurate balls, try and behind the striker. And I think maybe there was a message there, which was like, these aren't the players I play week in, week out, i.e. Tadic, those are the best players I've got.
Yeah.
And you can moan about it and you can whinge about it, but I see these people week in, week out, and I know what they can do.
I mean, I think it's a little bit early on to be thinking about responding to the fans whinging. And I mean, I don't know whether Pellegrino checks the Saints FC Twitter feed or, the below the line comments on the highlights on YouTube or the Facebook page or whatever. I suspect he probably doesn't. Yeah, I mean, I guess the atmosphere at St Mary's isn't particularly good at the moment. We're very quick to get frustrated with the team, which, to be honest, when you look at the results. I mean, I think the West Ham game is the only game that we've scored in something like the last 8 or 9 games.
Yeah, you're
at
saying
St.
it's
Mary's.
9, and
Yeah.
those are the 1 goal in open play, 3 goals in total in 9 games at St. Mary's.
And it's a depressing place to go.
It's a hoodoo.
And I don't know what's wrong with it. You know, I've seen people saying, you know, Pellegrino's got to go on Twitter or whatever, and that just seems completely ridiculous to me. I mean, the guy is, 4 league games into his Saints career. You know, regardless of the fact that we haven't solved a problem which has been building for months and months and months and months and months, yeah, of course, you know, it's going to take time. We'd have loved it to have, you know, brilliantly worked out for him and got off to a flying start. But actually, it looks like the issues that we've got at Saints are a little bit more deep-seated, and it looks like we've got a real confidence issue with some of our players. And, you know, they're lacking confidence, they're lacking bravery, they're lacking imagination.
Yeah, maybe they're scared of the fans getting on their back. I think I do question, though. We're at home. It's Watford. With all due respect to Watford, that is the game. That is a game that I imagine Saints thought they could win.
Yeah.
We go into it with 2 holding midfielders, and we seem to be. Is there a bigger? I can't imagine that a manager like Pellegrino would take the job with someone else telling him how to set his team up. But it does seem to be strange that we are so rigid, and that we don't look at that. We don't look at Watford at home and we go, you know what? That's a team that it's a new manager like us. Is that they have a lot of new players bedding in, way more than we do. They're there for the taking. Like, is that a game where you do try and can Gabbiadini and Austin work up front as a twosome? And instead, we kind of just play this same strategy and the same formation. I can understand that formation if we play Man City at home or Arsenal at home. I totally get it. But against Watford, I don't know. Are we showing ourselves to be lacking in ambition? Is what worries me. And you know, how will that translate as the season progresses?
I think absolutely. And it's hard for us as fans to watch that and kind of understand what the manager's doing. I mean, no doubt, you know, Maurizio Pellegrino had a pretty impressive playing career. He's had some, you know, relatively good successes in his managerial career. The Saints backroom staff that have done their scouting have obviously seen something in him that has made them suggest that he's the right guy to come to the job. But it is sometimes really frustrating when you're a fan and you just think, well, the biggest problem that we have is that we don't score goals, and there appears to be nothing happening to rectify that situation. And you know, that I guess that's the worrying thing. And you know, we've got Shane Long, we've got Charlie Austin, we've got Gabbiadini. They're 3 very different attackers in the way they play. Sure, none of them are a big man, but you know, big men aren't that necessarily fashionable in Premier League football at the moment. You know, tactically, they're maybe not that necessary, but yeah, we just seem to be missing that threat. But you think last season we put 4 goals against Watford at Vicarage Road, and we had Tadic and Redmond and James Ward-Prowse and Gabbiadini all combining beautifully and scoring 4 goals together.
Yeah, that was, I think, the last time we actually looked threatening. Probably apart from the final against Man United, that was the last time we actually looked threatening going forward, I think, in a game. I think, you know, from it appears there's a confidence problem. They're afraid. I don't think they believe they can score. And you know, now we go into a game on Saturday, which, you know, in theory looks like we can win, but Palace will have their tails up. Yeah. New manager. Saints, you know that. I think the away fan is away fan, which, you know, we're going to the game on Saturday. Really, I'm really looking forward to it. But I think the away fans are a bit more supportive, maybe a bit hardier than the home fans. So we'll see. But again, it's a part of an opening 5 fixtures where you'd have looked at the start of the season and gone, okay, what, Christ, we could end with 15 points.
I absolutely. I looked at that opening group of fixtures and I thought, you know what, this could be one of those things where you get in there, get some really, really good fixtures, get some good points on the table, and then your confidence high. Man United's the big game after Palace, and you think, you know, going into that sort of fixture, if your confidence is high, you've got a lot of points on the table, then you feel good. You go into that fixture and you can maybe cause an upset.
Or you can afford to lose.
Yeah,
you can. You can afford to lose against Man United at home because you've won 3 and drawn 2 of the previous 5 games, which you'd take. But it's not. And now we go, all of a sudden the fixtures are going to start getting hard.
Yeah. And
I don't know what it is. I mean, it's beyond my wit and wisdom to even fathom what the issue is.
So, I mean, I've just kind of like poo-pooed the idea of Pellegrino out. Is there any legs in that? Sacking a manager after 4 games? No.
There can't be. I mean, we've just seen Palace do it today.
What sort of club would do that?
What sort of South London club would do that? I think, but you've seen it. I think that Saints talk about a project, and they wanted a manager who bought into the long-term vision. Yeah, Pellegrino is without doubt that right person to do it. Any talk of him going is insanity.
Yeah, I mean, I hope with Pellegrino, he's a young guy. He is still learning. They obviously see some potential in him as a manager. And hopefully, this is just one of a little test that he's going to learn from. And, one day he's going to look back, perhaps at the end of the season when there we are kind of on the fringes of a Europa League place going, I learnt my lesson in those early weeks. That's what you've got to hope for, isn't it?
You'd hope that he's learnt so far that we shouldn't play 5 at the back from the Wolves game. And you hope he's learnt that Davis is not a holding midfield player.
Yeah.
And you'd hope he'd learn that we need to get the ball into Gabbiadini's feet running off the last man. It's they say it's not a difficult game.
Yeah. Well, let's pick up some of the talking points of the Saints Watford game. So, our clearances. I think if you look at the 2 goals, which were actually quite similar, both came from poor Saints clearances.
Well, like 2 poor Saints clearances, from pretty much from memory.
Yeah. They came from us not being quick enough to the second ball. And they also came from Forster not being able to get down quick enough to the ball as it came to him from, quite far out.
Across him as well.
Yeah.
So that these are long shots across Fraser Forster from distance. We exchanged messages on Saturday, which was almost as if coaches have worked out that's how you beat him.
Yeah.
You don't go up high, just go low because he's such a big guy. The goals were depressing to watch. The poor header from Stevens, not a great header from. I think this is for the second goal. Not a great header from Hoyt, and then Boufal just getting bumped out of the way like a little boy, and you just wish someone a bit stronger had just been there because that ball would have been cleared.
The interesting thing about the second goal is like Boufal kind of got boshed out of the way, and then it fell to the next Watford player. No Saints player had actually followed that on, and they were all just kind of standing around. Then Boufal kind of had another half-assed attempt at kind of moving towards him, and that's where he got the shot away. But I mean, for the whole game, Watford were all over us. They were pressing us well. Silva looks like he's got them working well,
which is exactly what he did at Hull.
Yeah,
he turned a very workmanlike group of players into
apart
a very
from
effective
away
unit.
I mean, it would have been nice if he'd kept his away record and brought that to St Mary's with him. But
yeah, I wonder with the team that was picked. I think we'll come on to that, but the just Saints defending just didn't look great. And obviously, Big Virgil's back tonight against Walsall.
And you think kind of we actually looked like that we missed Mario Lemina, even though, I mean, he's played 3 games for Saints? How can we look like we missed a player that's only played for 3 games so far? That's quite alarming, isn't it?
Yeah, I think but by all accounts, he is the dynamic link that they wanted to.
That links midfield and attack.
Links midfield, defence midfield attack. And I don't understand how a 23-year-old, and this goes back to the Steve Armstrong interview, which was fascinating, but how a 23-year-old who's just come off the back of playing for Juventus can need a break after playing in Africa in midweek.
Yeah.
Why is he not able to start on a Saturday?
I mean, when we so clearly desperately needed him as well.
Because we got bossed off the midfield.
And so let's pick up another talking point, because you've got to admit that when Tadic came onto the pitch, we looked better. We looked a bit more creative. And he's one of these players that infuriates fans. I think because we've seen him play so well in the past, and it doesn't always go like that with Tadic, and he can be infuriating and frustrating. But he does do stuff. He does try and beat players. And if you've got someone who tries to beat players, then it creates space and it creates pockets of space and places for players to move into, and then you get chances from it.
Yeah, I think Tadic is mercurial. I think it's probably the most polite way of putting it. His stats don't lie. The guy is a goal assist machine, veritably, and he creates a lot of chances. We, unfortunately, since Ricky Lambert probably lacked, certainly since Graziano lacked the striker to put those chances away. But again, I think that was a message. I think a lot of Saints fans had called for Boufal, and I think maybe Boufal looks very impressive, but Tadic does create a lot of chances. That's beyond any doubt.
Yeah, another player who I think would attack effectively, create chances, create space would be Josh Sims.
And my boyfriend.
And he's gone. Like, where is he?
Is he gone on loan? Or there was talk about him going to Sheffield Wednesday.
I mean, as far as I know, he hasn't gone out on loan, but he doesn't appear to be
near the squad,
in or around the squad. So
yeah, I think I would like to see Sim. I just think I don't know. Redmond doesn't seem to have any confidence. He's such a confidence player. There was a moment in the commentary on Saturday when there was a moment on the commentary, and he said Redmond has to get this right, and he doesn't. And it was like, if you ever wanted to know what sums up Redmond's career for Saints, it was that. Like, he had to get a moment right, like when he went through it against Huddersfield.
Yeah,
and he couldn't do it.
So, yeah. I mean, where do we go from this? So we've had the kind of softest Premier League start probably ever that we've had in our history. We sit, I think, in 10th or 12th position in the table now.
10th, I think we are.
Maybe 13th now, actually. We're looking at now the extra games have been played. And we're playing badly. We seem to be lacking attacking ideas. We've got a game against Crystal Palace, who've just sacked Frank de Boer after 4 games, which I think is astonishing. Who knows, what you're doing there when you employ a manager who's going for kind of total football, and then you give him 4 days to totally transform.
Yeah, even 2 loan signings, a bloke from Ajax, and then on the last day you buy the lump centre back that you had last year. Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe it doesn't work for Frank de Boer if he's outside of the Eredivisie. I'm not sure. But we're going to be going to Crystal Palace, who a lot of the fans and the players are going to be feeling a bit relieved. And they're probably going to give us quite a good game.
They always do. And it's an intimidating stadium to go to, Palace. They've got their ultras, which a lot of people laugh at, but they are loud and they've got good flags, and they'll be well up for it because they'll see this as their season starts now.
Yeah.
And Saints, they'll think they can get a result. They haven't scored, but we're not as watertight at the back as we should be, and there's no reason why they won't feel they can get a win. I think, I'm just looking tonight, Saints under 23s with Virgil van Dijk losing 4-0 away at Villa. So obviously Virgil van Dijk has not had the magic restorative effect that they hoped he would on that defence. So yeah, God knows what will happen on Saturday.
I mean, we were talking about this earlier. What is more important? Is it us losing 5-4 and all the players getting a goal from open play, or would you take a 1-0 here with it being an own goal from
Tadic, or a Tadic penalty or something?
Yeah. It just creeps in. I mean, we could do with the 3 points, but equally, I think we could just do with the players knowing that they can score and attack.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be interesting, and if you follow us on Twitter, it'd be good to what you'd always prefer as a Saints fan. Would you prefer the goals but a loss, or a sneaky win? I personally prefer a win, because I think they need to remember they can win, and they can win ugly. But yeah, it just is. We go to this game on Saturday, we've got genuinely no idea what's going to happen.
No, I mean, I just really hope that we see Saints score. That's all I'm hoping for at the moment. I've got a few kind of players that I want to talk about. Fraser Forster.
Oh dear, big phrase.
What's happened there, Tom?
Well, aren't you seeing what happens when a club makes a player essentially undroppable for reasons that are beyond? I mean, I think last season when
It only
was
happens
injured,
with goalkeepers, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I just don't see. He is an enigma to me because he's a big man who is not particularly brave. He is a vampire when it comes to crosses. He flaps at them all day long. He produces the occasional bit of magic. You watch on Saturday, you watch people like punch and shoot low and hard against him.
Yeah.
Knowing that he's got 6'7" of 15 stone worth of frame to try and get down. It worries me, and I worry the message it sends to the other players. What do players have to do to get dropped? How miserable does Bertrand have to look this season for him to get dropped? How many mistakes? How many fairly easy shots does Fraser have to let in? And I know he's a fantastic goalkeeper, and I know he did that miracle save against Liverpool, and he does pull things out the bag which are incredible. But what does it send as a message?
You want to see Stuart Taylor get a run?
We'd all love Taylor, but obviously no. I think McCarthy has to.
Yeah.
Why sign him if he's not a genuine competition for Forster? Why did they spend the money on him?
Yeah,
I don't understand. I mean, what are your thoughts? You see him more than I. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I see him in the. I mean, obviously, I've seen him perform possibly the best goalkeeping performance that I have ever seen, which was against Arsenal at the Emirates, where he kind of single-handedly just seemed to at those very close range shots, he was just able to very, very quickly react and stop the ball going in the goal. But, I think you're going to look at those two goals and you think, well, actually, he probably, he maybe could have saved one of them. Normally when I see that everyone's blaming Fraser Forster, I tend to disagree with the consensus, because I think there's normally been like 3 or 4 culprits along the way, whether it's like a Boufal not tackling properly, or it's a poor clearance, or, various other things that have led to us conceding the chance in the first place. But, I mean, what's the harm in trying? I mean, his confidence looks shot already. I mean, if you drop him, you might say, well, it could damage his confidence even more, but it could give him something more to fight for.
Yeah, we got dropped from the England squad, and then actually produced a half decent performance in the 0-0 game that followed that. So I don't, against Huddersfield. So I don't know. I mean, my worry is that do the other players have confidence in him? And also, we don't score goals.
Yeah.
So if we have a leaky goalkeeper, that makes it very hard for us.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder as well with Fraser Forster if he's ever been the same after his injury. And I think that maybe that's the thing, that maybe he didn't quite fully recover from that before being brought back into the side, and actually he could do with a bit more kind of strength or flexibility training or something to get him back to 100%. Okay, so talked about Fraser Forster. Let's talk about Gabbiadini.
He just needs the ball, doesn't he, at his feet? He looks so frustrated.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't need the ball. He needs it about 2 yards.
He needs about 2 yards in
him.
front of his feet. Yeah. He looks so frustrated and so distraught at the moment. And he looks a shadow of his former self. It's really worrying, because it must be, you got like Redmond running at pace. Slip the ball in. Put that ball in, and they just don't seem to do it. The decision making is bad, and ultimately it's Gabbiadini that suffers.
Yeah. So I don't think Gabbiadini is the problem. I think the system that we're playing at the moment doesn't suit him. I don't think it suits any of the strikers that we've got in the squad, which maybe thinks we should try and change the system and get it to work with the players that we've got.
I think the only one it would work, is Charlie Austin. Because he's a big lump and he can bring that ball down and hold it up.
But he's not actually a big man, though, is he?
No,
really?
well, he is, but in the places he shouldn't be for a professional athlete. which is the worrying aspect of Charlie Austin.
Yeah. I'm not convinced by Charlie Austin. I think, Shane Long again, he comes in, he brings a little bit of a boost of energy and something a little bit different. But again, it fades quite quickly. We always seem to bring on Shane Long when it's a bit too late to bring him on to change the game. I actually think Shane Long is more effective from the start, where you're bullying defenders right from the outset and you put defenders on their toes and it's hard for them to kind of cope and deal with it. And you almost have to decide, right, is this going to be a team that's going to be bullied by Shane Long, yes or no? If yes, let's throw him in. I don't necessarily think Watford would be the team that...
I love Shane Long. Shane Long is a nightmare. I think we're not using him exactly as you say, right. And I think he must be frustrated. His goal record has fallen off a cliff since the start of last season, as has everyone else's. But yeah, what's the answer? I've got no idea.
Yeah. Okay, so James Ward-Prowse. We're playing him in the kind of attacking central midfielder role at the moment. That's all wrong, isn't it?
What is James Ward-Prowse? If you'd say, can anyone, him included, tell you, is he a right-sided midfielder? Is he a central midfielder? Is he like a quarterback, like David Beckham sort of aspired to be towards the end of his career, where he sits behind the midfield, lobbing 40-yard passes to feet? Is he a goal scorer? Well, he's definitely not a goal scorer. Is he a tough tackler? He's definitely not a tough tackler. What is a James Ward-Prowse? And it's an enigma. Because he doesn't seem to be... there's no doubting his talent, like with the dead ball.
Yeah.
But he doesn't seem to be quite good enough in any position. Do you know what I mean? What is he?
Well, I think that Claude Puel got very close to figuring out James Ward-Prowse. And it was as a right-sided midfielder. And then before the end of the season, he changed his position back to a central position. So, I don't know. Every time I've seen him play in right midfield, he looks better than he does in any other position that I've seen him play in. Yet, for some reason, our managers keep on moving him back to the centre. And I don't know whether he's saying something to the managers now, I like playing in central midfield, or if they see something else that I don't. As a layman of football coaching, they see something that James Ward-Prowse can do that I'm not seeing every week. I think if you had Graziano Pella in the centre,
big lump,
and you had James Ward-Prowse outright, brilliant.
Yeah,
you get your crosses in.
But Gabbiadini's not a great header of the ball. No. It doesn't appear to be. He's not one for winning those areas. I mean, we've got he's going to be up against Saka on Saturday. Yeah. He's not going to win a sniff.
But I do wonder, perhaps if we had James Ward-Prowse on the right-hand side, threading through balls into Gabbiadini from wide. So you've got Cedric running up, does a nice little 1-2 with Ward-Prowse and throws the ball through. Or you've got Cedric kind of passing out from defence, goes to James Ward-Prowse, he passes it out.
But this what was meant to be on Saturday? When they put the announcement of the team up on Twitter, you had Boufal behind Gabbiadini, I think, and then you had Ward-Prowse on the right. And it actually turned out that Ward-Prowse played in the centre. And
Boufal was on the right.
Boufal was on the right. And it just doesn't... I don't know, is Ward-Prowse that dangerous that he can play behind a central striker? Has he ever shown anything? He's never scored a goal from open play, or once scored in the FA Cup, 6-7 years ago. He doesn't... he's not a deadly...
Yeah.
He's not that player, is he?
No. And Boufal, I think we've already spoken enough about. Wesley Hoot, our new signing, he seems to be was preferred to Yoshida.
Looks pretty tidy by all accounts. I mean, Yoshida obviously did a lot of miles. I think he played in Japan and then Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
He has this insane international schedule. But by all accounts, he's very tidy. He's incredibly good looking. My girlfriend is all over that. So if you're listening, Wesley, he must be really good.
Yeah.
And we've got to give him time. I hope he plays on Saturday because I'm really looking forward to seeing him.
See, my wife always went for Morgan Schneidlin. I remember taking her down to St Mary's and he got substituted on at some point and she was just suddenly a bit more interested in the game. I was like, who's that?
He's French as well.
Yeah.
He's automatically better than us. But yeah, like I you know, he plays for Lazio. He's got Dutch international caps. He's 23 or something. Yeah. We didn't pay, in modern football terms, a ridiculous sum of money for him. Yeah, it will be a very exciting signing.
Okay, so I'm not 100% sure about him, but I'm gonna go for hopeful because I think most of this podcast has been depressing. So let's say, right, at least we've got a tidy new signing, Wesley Hoot. We've got a pretty good signing, I think, in Mario Lemina. It's going to be good to see him back in the side, dictating the play on Saturday and bring us a win as we, travel to South London. Right, social media and Southampton constantly showing videos of their players doing shooting practice and training and scoring, quite brilliant goals.
Against Stuart Taylor and no defenders.
Yeah.
They need to stop they're trolling. I think that's what the young people call it. They're trolling Southampton fans with this because it is maddening because they do it now. They seem to have done it the last 3 weekends where they're like, look at these red hot finishes with the emoji of a flame.
Like a burning flame, yeah.
And it's like, wow, look at that finish from 10 yards out by Nathan Redmond against a half-tired Stuart Taylor. Which bears, and I think it's just like they need to stop doing it. Surely it's just if it annoys anyone as much as it annoys me, then it must be annoying. Oh God, it's so irritating.
So, or it would be interesting to know, do you think in training they actually practice shooting with defenders trying to stop them from shooting? Because maybe that's the issue. Maybe, they're doing this training against these dummies and a fake wall. I mean, obviously I'm taking the mickey now, but come on, it's almost like they're trying to say, look, our players can score and they can shoot, but we've transgressed since the start of the season. We're now not even creating the chances. The game against Swansea, you could kind of write off as being, we created lots of chances, we didn't quite finish, on another day you'd get 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But there's no way that you can look at the Watford game or even the Wolves game and say that we ever looked like we were going to properly score.
No, and I think that that's the really alarming thing, isn't it? That it's not that we're unlucky. Like Palace at the weekend against Burnley had like 23 shots and conspired to still lose 1-0. We're not like peppering the opposition goal and meeting inspired goalkeepers or world-class defenders. We're playing some pretty average teams and we're still not creating. So, yeah, and just looking here beyond Palace, just looking at these fixtures we've got, Palace, we could win that. Man United, yeah, you'd lose that. Stoke away, we get a result there.
Yeah.
Newcastle at home, West Brom at home, Brighton away. Like we've been given Burnley at home. We've been given, and then we hit a tougher run of games: Liverpool, Everton, Man City, Bournemouth, okay, and then Arsenal. Like our chance to take points is this run of games.
Yeah,
and we're in a lot of trouble.
If we
don't take points,
if we get to the 18th of November and we're not, well up there, like 6th or 7th in the league, and then we have the run of Liverpool, Everton, Man City, Bournemouth, Arsenal. I mean, in that run of 5 fixtures, I will expect us to lose 3.
Yes,
maybe
easily.
Win 1 and draw 1.
You know what? You take that. If someone offered it to you now, you'd take.
Currently watching this team, you would.
Yeah, I mean, so I think there's a, and you don't want to be alarmist 4 games into the season, but you got to look at it's just not looking cool.
Yeah. Hopefully Pellegrino's going to figure it out.
He will.
Yeah. I mean, let's have a little bit of faith. Saints social media team, you tend to be brilliant, but try and show the players taking it around a defender or something before they shoot, or maybe some passing practice or some chance creation practice in your next
crossing video. Corner. Like how bad are our set pieces? That's a whole other thing. Like when was the last time we genuinely threatened from a corner?
Well, see, the thing is, James Ward-Prowse great at set pieces, but we don't have anyone really who can finish them off. Van Dijk can.
But Hoyt's 6'4". He's as tall as anyone. I know he's only played one game, but we don't seem to be a threat from set pieces.
No.
The team from a couple of years ago, Koeman, was it that scored more goals, headed goals? That was the Pella team.
Yeah.
We seem to have totally, we seem to have totally forgotten how to do that.
Yeah. So anyway, I think at this point, Tom, let's take a couple of predictions. So what we're going to do against Palace at the weekend. I know you've said that this one's impossible to predict, but I'm just going to ask you to do it anyway.
I think we'll win.
You think we're going to win?
Because football's weird, and I do think they'll win. I think that he'll go back to the team that he knows. You know, Tadic, Redmond, Gabbiadini, you know, Lamina. I think I'll play a strong team, and I think we'll win, and I think we'll win 2-1. John.
Yeah. This is the mood that I'm in at the moment. I think we're going to lose, and I think we're not going to score.
If we don't score, it's my dad's birthday present. If we don't score, they've let down my dad.
So we're going there for my bro's birthday. He dutifully stepped in last time when you were off sunning yourself.
Did a great job as well.
Yeah. So anyway, for the benefit of Tom's dad and my brother, and let's get some birthday goals in. And I think we can probably. That's probably enough depressing.
There's enough depressing.
Well, actually, okay. So there's one last thing I want to talk about: the "My Way" song that they play at St Mary's. Which
is this? Because I often I'm in the pub until the very last minute. Is this the one where they've sort of bastardized the lyrics?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah, it is horrendous, and so I mean, I wasn't. I just thought, okay, this is really, really annoying. But obviously it has no effect on anything other than, the fans find it a bit irritating at the start. But then I read an article, and I've posted this on the SaintsFC Podcast Twitter page a couple of days ago, so you can find it. And it was in The Guardian about 4 years ago, and the title is, "Can Music Help Footballers Play Better?" And there's a research study that some German scientist has done, some boffin has got around, and he's got players playing against each other. One's listening to music which has got high tempo beat, and one's which are listening to music which doesn't have a high tempo beat, or not listening to music at all. And they found that it does increase the player's performance when they're listening to kind of high tempo, high energy music. And so to play that dirge at the start of every game, so the players are coming out.
But the fans don't seem to like it either.
No, the fans don't like it either, and the fans don't react well to it. You compare that to what's the punk version of When the Saints Go Marching?
Well, this would be the Saints are coming by a Scottish punk band, the Skids.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is the song. That's what the Saints should come out to.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's pumping, actually.
It's punky, it's high energy, it's like, we're going to get in your face and we're going to cause you problems. That is what you want. You don't want this Southampton way. So, I don't know whether the SaintsFC Podcast should start some sort of campaign against the My Way song, but...
I don't, it doesn't work for me, because also we don't seem to have a Southampton way that... We did, obviously, we bring out young players through. We had 2 starting on... Saturday, brilliant. But we're not a few years ago we were looking at 4 or 5 homegrown players, then you could say there was a Southampton way. I don't know if there necessarily is at the moment, and I almost think it's part of this this cloak of ridiculousness, that we're not play a song that is going to scare people and get the crowd pumped.
Either scare people, get people excited, just something high energy that people enjoy listening to would just be a huge improvement. Anyway, let us know what you think about that. As always, get in contact, SaintsFC Podcast at gmail.com or at SaintsFC Podcast on Twitter. Of course, the best thing that you can do for a podcast is subscribe, give us a review. Tell all of your friends that support Southampton to listen to the podcast, and we'll be very, very happy.
Please do.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see some of you on Saturday at Delhurst Park. For the rest of you, we'll see you in the non-visual world of audio.
Hello, welcome along to a new series and something different on the Ugly Insides YouTube channel and the beginning of a new series over here. Now, we've been in touch with some really good fellas on Twitter and we've collaborated now with the SaintsFC Podcast. It's run by two great gents, John and Tom, and they've been producing an excellent podcast since the beginning of this year, including capturing some excellent and candid exclusive interviews from ex-Saints, including Brett Ormerod, David Armstrong, cult hero Ken Moncal. But this week we're handing you over as the guys review a disappointing result against Watford and preview this weekend's trip to South London and Crystal Palace. Now, John and Tom, they want to try and get to the bottom of why Saints can no longer score. Ask if it's the team, the players, the system, the manager, or even the music played at the start of each match that could be the problem. The fellas look forward to the trip to South London against Crystal Palace after they've sacked Frank de Boer and wonder if Palace could be feeling the new manager bounce. But I'm sure Saints being Saints could mess it up along the way. And John and Tom will get into it a bit more. But before I hand you over, please do leave the SaintsFC Podcast a review on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcast. Do let us know in the comments of this YouTube video as well if you have enjoyed this episode and if you've worked out what the Saints problem is. All the links to their shows are in the description. So without further ado, over to John and Tom.
To Stokes, who's onside. 1-0. Here's Sims. It's a good search this from Southampton. They could finish the job here. It's Shane Long, and he has done it. Just a minute to play, plus stoppage time. Here's Letizia. Oh, better to say farewell than one of the finest players ever to wear the red and white.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the SaintsFC Podcast. My name is John Bailey and sat alongside me I have the ever-present.
I'm Tom Parker. Nice to see you again, John.
Yeah, nice to see you, Tom.